to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How are you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms. This show is all about healing our self-perception, coming back to ourselves mentally and looking not so much at the lies, but diving deeper spiritually, because the seasons and the times require it. Thanks to everyone that supports us on Patreon. We appreciate love you so much, and everyone who sends us a love donation through PayPal to enable us to continue to bring you this news and our awakening news. Our awakening news. You can check it out on our main channel, Dr. Mumbi Show. Be sure to subscribe to both. And I've been talking a lot about how there are basically 7 universal laws that are governing the world, and I think that's a good place to start, to understand and understand what is really going on, and to take it to the next level, and put aside these commandments, because that is just like, it's kept you in an infantile stage. And I think for me, the very first principle that we have to understand is the principle of mentalism, and the power of the mind, and the power of the narrative, and the power of the story, and why slavery didn't happen 400 years ago, but it is reinforced. Didn't just happen 400 years ago, but it's reinforced daily with these with the mental psyops that are done on our minds, and with the constant focus on it, and with keeping us mentally, our brothers and sisters mentally. And I'm not bashing reparations. Try and go deeper with me here. You have so much power as a supreme being, but you're focusing on 40 acres and a mule when you could break free from that and claim your own inheritance. And a lot of us are doing that here on the continent as well, where there are certain inheritances that we feel entitled to, or bloodline, whatever, and it's almost like we've put our lives on hold instead of tapping into our true powers. And so the very first thing we have to realize, the very first thing we have to become aware of, is that the world is mental, and our thoughts and our spirit create the reality that we live and experience. And nothing will change until we change our minds. And on top of it now, and I mean, one of the other, and there's different, there's different principles. You can see them here, and you can go and do, research them yourself. I would just the way I do it is always allow spirit to be your teacher. So even if you find these 7 principles, I usually write them out and then just allow spirit to guide me through each principle, how it applies to my narrative and my story directly. That just, it might work for you. But one of the other laws that is in effect and what has been used, because it's not just our story that is reinforced daily. It's not just our story that was hijacked, but a lot of magic and, wizardry, white magic was used against us. And the white magic is like the narcissistic magic, it's that magic that is not here to create, but it's here to destroy. And it's very much about manipulation, mind control, torture, fear. And you see, we had swung the pendulum, because one of the other laws, this is what I was going to say, is it's a principle of polarity, where everything is dual and has poles or opposites, and opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. And so it's like we swung all the way into the white reality, which has no depth, like the black reality or the darkness. And, where it's just a reflection and everything, smoke and mirrors, and, everything can be manipulated. But in going so far away out of our minds, it birthed many of us who are here today, the chosen ones, the ones who chose themselves. It birthed the opposite. That destructive energy birthed the creative energy. And we have now stepped into, the creative mental age. because everything is mental. But now we're in that mental age where instead of us being, there was a lot of illusion that could be used, with the whole smoke and mirrors, etc., etc. But now the pendulum is swinging, hasn't even swung, is swinging back. The destruction, that has now been left. It's ongoing. Babylon is falling. The matrix is coming down. And as that comes down, there are those who have chosen to come, at the darkest part of that pendulum, at the darkest part of that tip, to help bring the world back and bring our reality back and our people back into the total other extreme of creation and expansion and building pyramids and building all these cities that are somehow in the ocean. It's coming back to that. That's why they call it's coming back to the golden age. But it's always been mental. But somehow our minds were hijacked. And now we're coming back to ourselves. And it's really important that we remain mentally agile. And I said this in a previous episode, so that we can fully come back to ourselves. And being mentally agile means to recognize what has been used when we were in the polar opposite of ourselves. Because the Mzungu is the polar opposite of who we are. And I wouldn't say we're the same in different degree. No, they're just a polar opposite. And they've inverted and they've inverted everything. But they focus so much on the mind. So much research has been done on, mind control, MK Ultra. So much research has been done on how to penetrate and control the mind. And they're kind of reaching the pinnacle and the peak of that with what we're seeing with Rona. They're reaching the peak of that. And that's why this is the time to shield yourself the most. Because they say, the monster is most dangerous when the monster is falling. But he is not a monster. He shouldn't even be in our minds, because it's like the life is a theater, beloveds. Life is a stage. They had the stage before, and their show is over. And we're just getting into, the previews of the golden age. Because the ancient ones are back. Until next time. Well, actually, let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Wake up, Africa! Welcome back, beloveds, to Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms, in your own story, in your own narrative, because that is the fundamental of everything. And that right now, the most urgent thing is not focusing so much on the physical, but getting your mind right. And trust me, the physical will take care of itself. But the most urgent thing you need to do now is get your mind right, so that you are on the, on the left side of history. Everything they say is upside down. But so that you just find that, your bloodline continues in the path of creation and doesn't get caught up in the path of, of destruction. And we have to recognize that everything is mental. And once you really meditate on that, then you'll see why you shouldn't really focus too much on his story. Because everything we're hearing right now is his story. Whether we hear about the pharaohs being black, whether we hear about the pharaohs being Zungu, all of that has been tainted by him. And so we cannot rely on those stories anymore and risk the danger of leaving the Jesus narrative and entering the Yahuwah narrative, Like seriously, and this is not to diss any religion. Whatever works for you means that that's where you're at this time. But we have to move beyond any of these narratives of our past, beloveds, because the past is in you. The past is in your DNA. And if you clean yourself out, because as within is without, as above is below, if you work on just cleaning yourself out, then you will start to know your story. But the story is not what is pertinent right now. The story should only serve to give you a key to open the next door of your inner under and overstanding. So it only matters to me to know the pharaohs were black. At this point, if I don't have time to do the deeper research, because there's great documentaries that have been done by our people on it, etc., is to know that in my bloodline somewhere there's that lineage. But you see, if we enter into the path of obscurity where we don't know something but we're holding on to it and all these books are informing our mental, that's really lethal, beloveds. That's really lethal. And so we have to, that's why I keep saying, create your own narrative for now. Use all these things as keys to tap into something, because we've got stories that are millions of years old. So don't allow narratives of 20,000 years that have even been doctored and manipulated. Try and define what your bloodline could be. The most important thing is to get out of the mental manipulation and the religious psychosis of our time and fix that mental kind of fallout. Come back into your mind to the point where you can now start to walk into, all wisdom, all understanding, and all, reasoning, and things will be opened and make sense to you in a twinkle of an eye. You'll get the truths of what's happened, what's going on. But the most urgent thing is to get your mind right now. And that means being mentally agile, beloveds. Spending time in nature, spending time in silence. Because we're spiritual beings having a human experience, which means the spiritual is so much more than the human. And if the world is mental, you need to spend much more time in your imagination, manifesting and creating and envisioning what your reality should be like, and healing and discarding and letting go of what it should not be like. That is the most urgent thing of this time. And information is everywhere. There are certain stories I have read that have made me shed tears, but in those tears, it broke a certain barrier to my own power. And as I have gone deeper and deeper, I've gone back, I've come deeper and deeper back to myself. Remember, the world is a theater, beloveds. The Babylon show is over, and ours is just beginning. But you'll only really be able to fully participate and experience and just, live the wonder of it all if you do the necessary detoxing of your mind right now. Until next time, Tuko pamoja.